guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Becky. I'm a fashion and lifestyle blogger and I try to post here on YouTube like twice a week. Honestly, I post here on YouTube whenever I get around to it, because some weeks it's 3 times a week, sometimes it's once a month, and that's just how we roll around here. So today's video is going to be an update on my debt journey. I haven't recorded one in a while because, if I'm being really honest with you, I've had quite a lot of setbacks. I've gone backwards and I've tried recording this a few times and it's just gotten really emotional each time. I've kind of got myself together and I'm feeling like I'm ready to talk about this again. So many of you, when I've posted my previous videos, have said how much you enjoyed seeing it, you enjoyed seeing somebody be open about it and be honest about it, and how much you could relate to us being in a similar kind of position. So I really do want to talk to you guys about it and be open about this, and I feel like it really helps me keep myself accountable when I'm talking about it, because I almost feel like I don't want to let you guys down either, if that makes any sense. Also, something that's really exciting and has kind of kicked me up the bum to actually get round to recording this video is that yesterday I was a guest on the BBC4 Smart Consumers podcast, and we were talking about overdrafts and being in debt and getting out of debt, and it just really made me feel like I wanted to pick back up with this series and really start talking about this again. So the Smart Consumers podcast will be going live at some point today. Because I'm pre-recording this video, I don't know whether it's already out or will be out, but I'll put a link in the description to it when it is out. Or you can just search on any kind of like podcast provider for the Smart Consumers podcast, and you're looking for the one that's talking about overdrafts and the new overdraft regulations. So since it has been like 6 months since the last time I recorded a debt video, I'm gonna give you guys a bit of an update on my situation, how much debt I'm in, and what's kind of going on with that. I'm also going to touch you a little bit more about the new overdraft regulations, because I feel like I haven't heard anybody talking about this at all, which is really scary when it's about to affect so many people's lives so much. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to show you how I am tracking my spending and how that's helping me save money on a monthly basis so that I can make more payments. So yeah, if you want to see all of those, stick around. Since there's kind of 3 big topics in today's video, I'm going to put some timestamps in the description box so that you can skip to whichever bit you want to skip to if you don't want to listen to all 3 of them. So I'll start with talking about the overdraft regulations, because I feel like that's like one of the quicker topics. So the new rules that will be coming into effect in April change the way that banks can charge overdraft fees and what interest they can charge on overdraft. Personally, it won't affect me for about 18 months more, because I'm currently in an interest-free buffer period because I'm on a student account, which means that I don't pay any interest on my overdraft. However, for people who obviously aren't in student overdrafts and don't have interest-free buffers, there are going to be changes to the fees that you will pay if you use an arranged overdraft or if you slip into an unarranged overdraft. We'll talk about unarranged overdrafts first. So previously, banks could charge a fee daily, and then they charged a percentage as well. So I think for NatWest it was £12 a day plus about 19% that you were charged. And I know that NatWest will now not be charging daily fees, but the interest rate will be going up to 40%. So it's like 39.9-ish. And for arranged overdrafts, the interest is also changing from, it's around like 18 or 19%, I think, for most banks at the moment. And that will be changing to around 40%, depending on what your bank specifically is changing it to. So definitely check that out and kind of make sure that you're cluing yourself up on what that change is, so you know what your payments are going to change to, because that can get so pricey so quickly. And it's just terrifying to me that banks make so much money charging people interest and fees when they have no money. Like, I get that this is how banks make their money, but there just feels something so wrong about charging people for having no money. There's a lot of advice out there. People like Martin Lewis have said things about how you can manage these new fees and how you can find cheaper ways to pay off your debt. So maybe looking into things like getting a 0 interest credit card and using that to pay off your overdraft and then paying off the credit card, or something like that might be useful. I'll pop a link in the description to Martin Lewis's, I'm sure I saw an article the other day where he gave some advice on how to kind of navigate this new world of overdraft interest. So yeah, we talked about this a lot more extensively, and I'm sure that the other people on the podcast explained it so much better than I did, so definitely check out the podcast if you're worried about this. Also, Iona Bain from Young Money was on the podcast and was talking about how you can get yourself out of debt and how these new regulations can affect people. So definitely check out the podcast if you want to hear somebody who is far more eloquent than I am talk about this. So I'm going to talk you through my monthly like spending budget sheet thing now, because I feel like it's been really helpful for me to spot harmful spending habits that I have. This isn't a spreadsheet that I've made myself, it's a Google Sheets one, so I'll put like a link to it in the description. But it's a really nice one if you're looking for something really simple to track your spending, and mine is going to be on the screen. To start off with, it's quite basic. You have on the left your expenses, on the right your income, and then at the top it tells you how much you've saved and your increase in savings, and then it shows you your planned and actual expenses for the month and your planned and actual income for the month. So all I've done here is I've gone through the different categories that I spend in. So food, water, electric, gas, rent, petrol, winter, blah 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 blah. So I've gone through next to those and I've put in how much I expect to spend for some things. So like the rent is a set fee, it's not going to change. So for example, this month I'm trying to not spend more than £100 on food shopping, and given we're 6 days in and I've managed to spend 46. Good job, Bex. So yeah, and then on the right, my income, and this is my expected income based on hours I should be working this month, ads I should be doing this month. But if these things change, then all of this could change and it's a mess. But that's a whole thing. But this is like a whole other conversation. When you're kind of self-employed or you are freelance, there are so many other struggles that come with money, and I think that's going to be my next kind of video on the topic, is talking about that and how I try to manage that element of finance, because it is a really big hurdle. But anyway, for now, so over here I'm tracking what I expect to make each month, well this month, and then for things like selling items, I'm trying to sell a lot of things to supplement my income. So I'm hoping to be able to sell £150 worth of stuff. Whether it happens or not, we will see. So that's all in the summary sheet, and the only thing that you change in the summary sheet is the categories and your planned expenses, so just the pink boxes, and at the top you put your starting balance for the month. So you can see mine is minus 8,309, which is terrifying. We will get into that and the update around that in a minute. Then if you go into the transactions tab, you can see here that I have been putting in each payment that I make, for anything. So you can see that winter's care plan is in here, the Wi-Fi payment is in here, the water is in here, the rent. And then you can see that the money that I've been paid for 1 week of nannying, Depop money, commission money, money that my mum gave me for my birthday, which isn't until next week actually, but I bought a coat on my credit card and she paid for it. So she sent me the money. So I would be able to kind of manage all these different payments in my head and not lose track. I put it through as income and I put it through as like having bought the coat, if that makes sense. But that's a whole different story. That's not a normal thing. So then yeah, I put in every single thing that I do, no matter how low it is. If it's 99p or whatever, I track everything. So let me show you my January budget and you'll be able to see a little bit more about what I mean in it being able to help highlight harmful spending habits. So if you look at my overall for the month, you can see that I was paid a lot less in ads than I expected. I was paid a lot less in commission than I expected. I thought that I was going to get a payout from one of the affiliate networks I work with last month, and I didn't. And you can see that I sold a lot less stuff than I had hoped to be able to sell. So for me, that highlighted that I'm not making as much as I want to be / expect to be. So I need to be a little bit more realistic with what money I'm expecting to come in. This is something that's caused a lot of problems over the past few months for me. And I feel like I'm kind of starting to get into the routine of knowing how to deal with that. But again, that's another video that we'll talk about a bit later. If you then look over to the expenses, you can see that I've spent a lot more on work related expenses than I expected to / would have liked to. Some of those were things that I've bought to make my work life easier rather than because I needed them. So that is an area that I'm going to be looking at trying to spend less this month. I think I increased the budget this month for it. But it's still lower than what I actually spent last month. So that's things like tools that I use for YouTube to track keywords, or Facebook advertisements, or props for shoots that I'm doing, petrol for the nannying, things like that, all build into my work expenses. So I'm trying to spend a lot less on that this month. You can see that last month I was well over budget in my other category. Things like my Apple storage bill. Oh, so last month I hadn't made myself a category for shopping yet. So things like that coat that I mentioned, I bought in January and then my mum paid it this month. The council tax bill came last month, which I've had a nightmare with. Basically, I thought that I would pay council tax from when I graduated in December. So I was planning on calling them at the end of January when I'd been paid and saying, hey, like I need to start making payments. Turns out you're charged from when you finish your course. So I owed from September and the bill actually came in before I called them. Turns out that I owe them £660 in back pay and to pay to the end of March. So by the end of March, I have to have paid £660. So 220 of that other category is council tax, which I have made a council tax category in February so that I can account for that. And I've made a shopping category for February, which sounds really like silly to have a category of things that I'm literally just buying willy-nilly, but things that have gone into that are things like I bought new chopping boards because ours were knackered. And I also I bought a new Fitbit strap, which I then was like, why have I bought this? I can't afford this. So I returned it, but I had to pay the return postage, so £3 there. But I put that into my shopping category because it wasn't really an essential expense. So things like that. So in January, my expenses ended up being much higher than my income, and I ended up having to rely on things like credit cards to help me through the month, which is so frustrating. I should have made enough last month. Things like cancelled work, both nannying and advertisements that had been agreed upon for like Instagram and stuff that were cancelled and stuff. So I ended up making less than I expected, which meant that I was kind of the wrong way. In January, I spent, everything included, £2,249, which is terrifying. There was a whole business with winter being ill in there as well, which I'm gonna explain in a minute. So it sounds really high, but there was a lot of big unexpected expenses in January. And my income was £1,452. So I made about £800 less than I spent. Wonderful. Paying all of my essential bills and budgeting very small budgets actually for all other kind of categories in my life means that I will hopefully spend no more than £1,519 in February, and that's including £500 worth of debt payments. And I'm expecting to be paid around £1,240 this month. Will I have hours cancelled? Probably. Will ads fall through? Probably. Will I actually make that? Probably not. So essentially what that budget spreadsheet does is it tells you in each category how much you've overspent by, and it makes it really clear to see where you overspent because it highlights it in red. In which tab is it? In the summary tab. You can see like, do you need to be making a lot more money, which is a thing for me, or do you just need to be spending less? And it can really help you make those decisions by just giving you a really clear and simple view of everything, really. Okay, the debt plan and how much I actually owe at the moment. My favorite part. So I'm gonna scooch over so I can put my numbers over here. I've made a slight change to my spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is exactly the same, but I've ordered everything so that the nearest deadline is at the top of the spreadsheet and is the most visible, just to make it a little bit easier to see exactly what are the most essential payments. So for instance, on my overdraft, I've scheduled according to the spreadsheet payments weekly so that I can pay it off before I start paying interest, so pay it off within the interest-free buffer period. But if I don't pay anything on my overdraft for the next 10 weeks, I'm not going to gain any interest. I'll just have to make bigger payments in the 17 weeks after that. So what I'm doing is focusing on the stuff that's going to come into interest first. I don't remember exactly what you do or don't know, so I'm gonna briefly explain where every cost has come from. £116.95 for some household things. When we moved house, there was loads of stuff we didn't have. We didn't have microwave, we had no lamps like for anywhere in the house. We smashed glasses and stuff when we were moving, and I just had no money to replace these. At the time, I was in a much better financial position than I am right now. So I ordered those on Very, thinking that £116 is not too big of a deal and I can manage to pay that back in time. So I have 7 weeks left to pay that off, which makes it about £16 a week to pay that off on time. I currently owe £440 for the council tax bill, which has to be paid by the end of March. This is like technically a bill and not really an owing thing. But since it's something so big, and because I am technically back paying as well, I decided to put it into my debt spreadsheet just to help me manage that and make it a little bit easier. I currently owe £49 for a backpack and a pair of trainers. So I bought these at the start of my master's degree, and I bought these on Very as well. So I have to pay that back in the next 15 weeks. And these were things that I bought. I wanted trainers so I'd be walking around campus a lot, and I could do that. And a backpack because I didn't have a bag that would fit my laptop and my books in. Again, another thing that felt relatively small at the time and felt really manageable, and now in hindsight I really regret, and like I should have probably just bought something secondhand in a charity shop or something rather than putting it on credit. But this is the situation I'm in. I've made my choices, now I have to deal with them. I also owe my partner £942 at the moment. So what actually happened there was, it started out with my partner lending me money for car insurance because it came right in the middle of my whole mess of just falling into debt. And then throughout the summer, as you will have seen in my last budgeting video, I was constantly having hours dropped at my nannying job. For some reason in the summer I was just getting no work on Instagram. Everybody wanted me to do free stuff, nobody wanted to pay for my work, and I was just barely making anything. So there were a couple of times where I had to borrow money for rent, borrow money for petrol to be able to even get to work. Kind of like, it was really a really hard time during the summer. And that at its worst was up to £1,341, and I've currently paid £399 on that. Okay, and then the next thing is £634.79 that I owe on my credit card. Devastatingly, this is actually the credit card that I paid off in, I think, my first debt video or my second one. Winter was really sick at the end of last year, and we ended up spending a few £100s on that. And then when it became evident that he was going to need a lot more treatment, we decided to not pay the rest of the vet bill. We arranged this with the vet, and we would claim it on his insurance because it had crossed the excess, kind of the minimum for the excess. So last month we received the decision from his insurance company that they would be rejecting the offer, which meant that we had another few £100s to pay. So screw pet plan, because it was a legitimate claim, but that's a whole different story. So I had to put a few £100 on my credit card, and then, as I mentioned, since we last talked, I have really struggled to work and have basically had to put lots of really basics on my credit card, like food and petrol and stuff. I also had to take out a second credit card to be able to just manage day to day. So that currently sits at £1,490. It was at £1,572, so I've paid £82 on that so far. I should mention that I refreshed the spreadsheet and like cleared it and started again at the start of this year. So it seems like I haven't paid a lot, but I have actually paid a lot, if that makes sense. So yeah, I have kind of made more progress from when it was at its worst, but you know. So then the next kind of category is a camera. This, I'm still uncertain whether this was a good choice. So near to the end of last year, I was getting really fed up with how so near to the end of last year, I was getting really fed up with how little money I was making on Instagram, particularly how little money I was making compared to what I was 6 months before that. So I went ahead and spoke to a few brands that I'd worked with and wasn't working with on a paid basis anymore. I reached out to a few brands who had just changed their mind, and I asked them kind of like, what's the deal, what's going on? And the feedback that I got from loads of people was that the quality of my content just wasn't high enough compared to a lot of other people. So I debated, should I buy a new phone, get a contract, or buy it on Very or something? I didn't want to be tied into a contract when I'm so up and down with my income monthly. It just didn't feel like an expense that I could manage. So I debated buying the phone on Very and buying like an upgraded iPhone. Obviously you're looking at like 1,000 at least. So I ended up buying a camera, which is what I'm recording on now, and I bought it on Very, so that's another expense that I have to kind of handle now. So that is for £549.99. I tried to go for a camera that was good and was highly recommended, but also wasn't literally the top of the end. And this one is the one I kind of landed on. It's a Canon G7X, and I've definitely been getting more work again. My work is going up. I'm getting more ads again than I was at the point when I bought the camera, so I do feel like it's helped a bit, but I'm not sure how much is just time of year, there being more work around and stuff. So like I said, I'm still kind of conflicted on whether that was a smart move or not, but here we are. It's a move that I made now, and I think it was a smart move. I do think that it helped, because there does seem to be more work, but I'm just not quite certain still. And then the final big scary expense slash debt that I have left is my £2,000 overdraft, which is terrifying to say out loud. It makes me feel a bit sick in my stomach, and especially with the new overdraft regulations, I could cry just thinking about it. So the first £1,000 is debt-free until around September 2019, and then the second £1,000 until around September 2021, which is £258 better than when I started, but is also £1,819.19 worse than when I last spoke to you. So that's where we're at. So just a couple of things that I feel like I really want to say, just for context. I have been applying for loads of work in Bangor, and I'm just really struggling to even get interviewed. So I do have a lot of experience, and I do have a good degree. I got a distinction on my master's, but I think that my experience and my degree make it very clear that I have a very specific area I want to work in, which is digital marketing, and unfortunately there's just no digital marketing jobs in Bangor. It's a tiny little town up in the north of Wales, and there's just none of that work here. So my partner and I are hoping to move in a few months, after my partner's master's degree finishes, hopefully to somewhere where I can find more work and have a more stable income. But there's expenses associated with that, and it's months away, so I have to make it that far still. So yeah, I'm applying for work here. I'm not even getting interviewed. I am still nannying like I was in the last video that I talked about this, but my hours are a lot lower than they used to be, and quite often things will come up and I won't be needed anymore, or I'll be needed for less hours and things like that, so that's not really stable either. I have recently acquired a manager who is really helpful in helping me get more work on Instagram and blogging and stuff. So she's helped me to kind of start bringing in a lot more money in that kind of sense. But it's still just not quite stable enough and not quite enough to keep me from going into more debt on a monthly basis. And honestly, right now, it just feels like I'm drowning, and I feel like every time things are starting to go well and I'll make a really big payment on something, or even just make an okay payment, something comes along, Winter gets sick, or the council tax bill that I thought was going to be £80 a month is 110 a month. Oh, and by the way, you owe 3 months already. And yeah, I'm gonna go before I start getting too upset, because if I sit and think about this for too long, I'm gonna break. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me that people care enough about my story to sit and listen to me talk about it and cry about it and moan about it. And if you are kind of interested in overdrafts and their fees, or you have an overdraft, or you frequently slip into an unarranged overdraft by accident, or you're just interested in personal finance or anything, definitely check out the BBC podcast that I was on. Again, it's called Smart Consumers. And if it is live already, then the link to that is going to be in the description box below. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And hopefully I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you.
I just can't let you go. Lord knows that I've tried to. You said I was the only one. No one likes being lied to. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I wanna burn all